2 cases for Bryan Kohberger this week. One is going to be televised. Fuel me once here, driving instructor of the world. So Bryan Kohberger's defense team is arguing that one of their motions to dismiss, which they previously asked for to be sealed, they now want unsealed because it's the public's right to know. Now this is a little odd. They say they felt pressured by the prosecution to seal this motion originally, but now they want it unsealed because the public has a right to see it. Of course, the defense says that they don't want any other motions unsealed, especially the 2 previous motions to dismiss. And they still want the gag order. They've argued for that. They still don't want cameras in the courtroom. But this one motion to dismiss, they now want to unseal so everyone can see it. Apparently, they believe there's some piece of information that's going to benefit the Bryan Kohberger defense, accused of being the slayer for the Idaho 4, Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana. Let's remember their names. Now, this is a typical legal strategy to dismiss on some kind of technicality. And that's what the defense team is arguing here. They're not arguing evidence. They're not arguing an alibi. They're arguing some legal issue. And that's part of their strategy. That's part of what they're hired to do. Get the case dismissed, or at least this particular technicality causes the case to be dismissed. There's 3 really good outcomes for the defense. Number 1, get the case thrown out entirely. Number 2, win in court. Number 3, get the case dismissed on a legal technicality, or the charges dismissed on a legal technicality. That one's not foolproof because the state or prosecution can then bring the charges again, getting around that particular technicality. That's what happened on Ann Taylor's last DP case. There was something with the officers' background and integrity. They got the case thrown out. The prosecution re-brought charges, and that defendant was found guilty. So the third one's not a great option, but sometimes the state doesn't bring charges again, or they rethink or whatever. In this case, they would bring charges again. So far, Judge has dismissed all the motions to dismiss. The last 2, he said, were creative and interesting, but not legally applicable. And those revolved around getting the grand jury verdict thrown out because probable cause isn't the way to find that charges should be filed, according to Ann Taylor. But that's been the legal standard since our justice system began, and before in other countries as well, those countries that we based our justice system on, England, etc. So in this case, and they're just simply arguing unseal the motion so the public can see why they wanted the case dismissed. They're not even arguing the case should be dismissed because that wasn't found to be a possibility in this case. They just want the public to see why they were arguing that. It's a very slight technicality. So they think that there's something in this motion that they made that the case should be dismissed, which wasn't granted, but that the public can see. Clear as mud. That will be live streamed Friday, 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock Eastern time, by some YouTubers, Justin on TikTok, London's Notebook, also on YouTube for the Idaho Courts channel. That's the only channel that will be broadcasting. They're also going to be arguing in a not televised case that the genealogy process that the prosecution used needs to be turned over to them. The prosecution is saying, well, that process isn't applicable here because it was, there were other DNA that were found that pointed to 2 other males in the home, and the prosecution saying that has no relevance here, and the process we used has no relevance, and even if it did, we can't turn it over because there's some protected data here from families. But the defense is saying, nope, we want the whole thing. We want to know exactly how you came up with Bryan Kohberger's name, and this is part of that. We'll see what happens Friday on the road of life. Please drive kind.